The MLS is a top 10 league in the world, and it doesn't matter that you don't like that. It's just facts. And top 10 is just the beginning. The MLS is going to be the best league in all of world soccer in the near future. And it doesn't matter that you don't want it to be so, because that's what's going to happen. The United States just has too many resources and too much potential talent for players. Once Americans embrace the sport, like we already do basketball and American football, it's over for Europe. And if you don't believe me, let's look at Opta stats. Opta Analyst is probably the best objective metric we have for comparing leagues around the world. And look at it right here. Major League Soccer is the 10th best league in the world, just behind the Brazilian League, the Danish Super League, and the Portuguese League. But let's not just go by that on its own. Let's look at actually some of the other leagues. Let's start with the most dubious league you claim to be better than the MLS, the Saudi League. And as you can see here, maybe Al Hilal is better than the best team in MLS. But when we look at the top half of the table, notice something. There's almost no Saudi teams other than Al Hilal and Al Nasser. In fact, that's it. Then we get to the bottom half of the league, the third best Saudi team, Al Ittihad, and then we have the worst MLS team, San Jose Earthquakes, and a whole bunch of Saudi teams. So the MLS is better than the Saudi League. Now we have MLS versus Liga MX, and once again, the MLS teams are at the top of the league and closing out the top. Then we have the bottom of the league, and look, the MLS teams are ahead of the bottom of Liga MX as well. Now we have the Argentinian League, which 3 MLS teams are ahead of River Plate, which is the best Argentinian team, and Boca Juniors is below even them. Then we got the bottom half of the table, which MLS is better than the Argentinians' bottom half of the table. Admittedly, San Jose is close to the bottom down there. Then let's go to Europe, the Eredivisie. Yes, PSV and Feyenoord are better than any MLS team. But then we got Columbus Crew, LAFC, Inter Miami, before we get to Ajax and AZ Alkmaar. Then a lot of MLS teams. Then we look at the bottom half of the table. I want you to notice something. The bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams are Eredivisie teams. So the MLS, top to bottom, it's probably at least as good, probably actually better than Eredivisie. And here is the Colombian League, which you said was better than the MLS. But I want you to notice something. Where are the Colombian teams? There's only one, Deportes Tolima. They're the only one that's in the top half of the table. You have to go to the bottom half of the table to even get to the Colombian teams. The MLS is considerably better, and this shouldn't actually be a surprise because look at how many Colombian players are in Major League Soccer. It's because the MLS pays better than the Colombian League. Now we have the Portuguese League, and now we're getting in the leagues where, you could argue are better. Sporting, Porto, Benfica, and Braga are better than all of the MLS teams, and the rest of it is pretty close. Quite a few Portuguese and MLS teams. Then we have the bottom half of the table, and in this case, I'll give it to the Portuguese League. They're at least a little bit better than MLS. And now the Brasileirão. I consider the Brasileirão, the Brazilian League, the best league outside of Europe and the best league in the Americas. But I find this really interesting. Columbus Crew is actually ahead of Palmeiras and Botafogo. Now, you don't have to agree with that, but Opta's ELO system is more objective than our just subjective biased opinions. Now, I will say this. The top half of the table is Brazilian heavy. And the bottom half of the table is MLS heavy. And yes, the very worst Brazilian team is better than 5 MLS teams. So Brasileirão is probably better than MLS. Okay, now we're to the big 5 leagues in Europe, which are probably the top 5 leagues in the world. And yes, the French league is better. We have Columbus Crew and LAFC rounding out at 10th and 11th place. And the bottom half of the table is literally just all MLS teams, with just a small handful of French teams near the top of the bottom half. Bundesliga is somewhat similar, but Columbus Crew, 8th place, so they're doing a slight bit better here. Now, LAFC has a long way in behind them, and Inter Miami and Houston Dynamo there at the bottom of the top half. And the bottom half of the table is basically just MLS teams. Now we're to Serie A, and Columbus Crew is in 11th place, LA in 14th place. So yeah, Serie A is clearly ahead of MLS currently. Bottom half of the table is just MLS teams. La Liga. Now, MLS is best represented by Columbus Crew in 9th place. LAFC is in 16th place, so they're surviving relegation at least. Inter Miami rounding it out 19th place for the top half of the table. Bottom half is all MLS teams. And here we have the big one, the Premier League, which is the best league in the world currently. And Columbus Crew is in 14th, LAFC in 16th. So the two best MLS teams are at bare minimum surviving relegation according to Opta Analyst. So I think it's actually fairly objective to say MLS is the 10th best league in the world. And I think another 10, 15 years, it's definitely going to be top 5. Another 10 years after that, could be the best league in the world. And here's the thing. If soccer even becomes a strong third most popular sport in America, we just have far superior resources to any European country when it comes to people, economics, and even more than that. Europe is just not going to compete.